Good evening. This begins the September 11th, 2014 meeting of the City of Ojai Historic Preservation Commission. We'll start with roll call. Ms. Wold.
All right, good evening, everyone. Let's see, I'll start from this side. Commissioner Rooney.
Here.
Vice Chair Walker.
Present.
Commissioner Hill.
Present.
Commissioner Boggs. Here. Commissioner Basache.
Bisacha, here.
Basacha. Oh, thank you. You're right. When you say it, I know it, but I can't say it. And Chair McCready.
Thank you, Ms. Wold. Here.
And Museum Representative Aiken. Here. And I believe you're going to be our new representative here? Is that right?
I believe so. The mayor's not in your head, yes.
Yes. Yeah, okay. I don't want to be remiss with a proper title here, so thank you.
We have no public comment cards tonight, so we have the meeting minutes from our August 14th meeting to review. I have a couple of comments on item number 3, page 2.
That's a good way.
And on item number 3, page 2, it should say Commissioner Boggs seconded the motion to nominate. Right. So delete the D. And on item number 4.
Could you go over that again for me, please? Where was it?
It's item number 3, page 2.
Okay.
Under motion, Commissioner Hill moved and Commissioner Boggs seconded the motion to nominate rather than nominated.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
And then on item number 4, there's something that I'm not understanding under Vice Chair Walker's comments. Maybe you can fill us in how that should read.
Oh.
Commissioner Walker.
I think it reads okay. It was that we, instead of just writing up a report on all these various properties where different commissioners might write up different kinds of reports with different things in different order, that there be some kind of a form presented, like the county of Ventura had when they did theirs, that would keep us all on the same page, so to speak.
Are there any other comments or changes from any other commissioners on the minutes? Then I move to approve the minutes.
I so move.
I'll second.
Thank you. It is so moved, or do we vote?
Oh,
You can't.
Oh, okay.
You can't make a motion.
but we'll vote.
It's fine. We had it. I'll note that Walker made the motion and Boggs
Okay.
second.
Okay.
And then you can just have a...
Commissioner Basacha?
Yes.
Commissioner Boggs?
Yes.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes.
Commissioner Walker?
Yes?
I still have trouble with your last name.
Okay, Commissioner Roney?
Commissioner Roney?
Yes.
Thank you. It is so moved to approve the minutes.
Chair McCready, before you move on, could I ask a question real quick on one of the action items in item number 8 under planning report?
Yes?
I was just wondering, it says Commissioner Hill requested the staff reports for any projects at historic sites of merit be provided to the Historic Preservation Commission. Ms. Wold agreed to send the staff reports for comments from the HPC, and I'm just wondering if anybody received those.
You should have received them via email. Did the commission not receive? Staff was instructed to send out to you the packet is PDF that goes to Planning Commission. So you should have received via email
Planning Commission agenda.
the Planning Commission agenda for the night that the concept plan went for the library, the Friends of the Library. I'm sorry, whatever is that its proper name, Friends of the Library building that we talked about this evening. You should have gotten that one, and you should have gotten. I think the other one was the Mr. Shimsheri's property. I think you should have gotten one too. There were 2 that were
Correct.
sent out. Okay.
Okay.
Did you not receive them? Museum representation or representative?
I didn't receive them.
Okay,
Maybe you will next
Did you
month.
see? Yes. Did you receive them?
I did receive the Planning Commission reports. I
Yes.
mean, the pending items and agendas.
Right. Okay.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes.
One of the things that happened at the Planning Commission, and I can report on all of that, but there was an item that happened during the course of that concept review. A number of us were there at that Planning Commission meeting, and they kept talking about a report that had been, and they kept referring to this report by San Buenaventura Associates. And finally, they called me to the podium and asked me if I had received such a report. And I said, no, we had not received a report from San Buenaventura. And so at the end of the meeting, after everybody was finished and we said good night, goodbye, and so on, the lady that was an assistant for that property at 1000 Foothill Road, she came over to me and she handed me this, which was a copy of the San Buenaventura. It had all the pictures and things that she reported on in her conclusions. And I said, no, this is not what I had. I didn't receive this. And because I thought that we were going to be getting the entirety of these reports. And so something like this, which would have been a valued attachment, we should have been able to review. I talked to Heather earlier in the week, and she said, when this comes up next, this report will be given to all the members of our commission. But I was under the impression that when we asked for alerting us of important documents or something that that refers to the historic nature of things and the business of our commission, that we be given that too.
Well, now I think that we need to ask for that then, because I think what we agreed with staff was that we would be notified of the agendas of.
The agendas are fine.
And I think, I just want to clear this up, okay? So when applicants hand in crucial information after the packet has already been distributed, whether it's to council or commission or to this board, that sometimes that is not PDF'd or aggregated in what I sent out to you because it's received late. That report was received, I believe, late. Otherwise, it would have been in that PDF we gave you, because we PDF everything. We make everything that we have available to the public. So
Then I misspoke.
So yes, you should have got that. My apologies. Yeah, but that in particular, that report was not analyzed by staff.
Yeah.
It was submitted in, at the time that it was going before Planning Commission, they were specifically reviewing a variance. And they submitted that documentation in as documentation as to why the property is dangerous. You know, that was part of their evidence. Okay, so we weren't talking about the historic nature of anything. That's not in their purview. That's more in yours. Mm-hmm. So that's why and I agree you should have that. So I'll make sure everybody has it. Heather is right. We would always include it in something coming before the Preservation Commission. However, we try to make sure that we keep each board and commission focused on what their task is, and their task was to decide whether or not they were going to support a variance to allow this 6-foot fence to go in, and yeah, so you understand where we're going.
Yes.
But I understand the confusion.
Thank you.
And I can understand the problem that happens when these additional documents come in late. There's no way. And that this needed a review by staff to make recommendations. And I'm sure now that it's part of our discussion that when we ultimately review that property for the next go-around, that it'll be part of it.
Yes, it will be.
Yeah.
And we will make comments on that, review that report.
Thank you. Item 2, Historic Preservation Award. Staff staff report.
Okay, before you tonight is the Annual Historic Preservation Award for 2014. And as you remember, at the last meeting on August 4th, am I on the correct item? I am.
That's right.
Okay. Before you at the August 14th, 2014 meeting, the commission reviewed this year's award nominations and voted to recommend Tia Andrews and Aaron Clapp as the City of Ojai's Historic Preservation Award recipients for 2014. Staff has provided a resolution for the commission's formal recommendation and is included in this packet as attachment A, as well as a copy of Tia Andrews' biography and Aaron Clapp's biography. And with that, we would just like the commission's ratification to forward to the City Council for ratification and present the award on December 9th, 2014. And the recommendations are adopt HPC Resolution number 14-04, recommending the City Council recognize Tia Andrews and Aaron Clapp with the City of Ojai's Historic Preservation Award for 2014, and designate a staff or a commissioner to prepare wording for the award presentation by the City Council.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion on this, or do we have a motion?
Well, you want a motion that we,
Approve this resolution.
I'll make the motion that we approve this resolution.
Commissioner Boggs? Do we have a second?
I will second.
And I would like clarification on that one point. Are you nominating a staff person or a commissioner?
Oh, that's
To
what
make the
you,
presentation.
oh,
Prepare wording.
Or can you just read?
What have we done in the past? I'm sorry.
well,
I can tell you what we have done in the past. It's not always been the same, but for years, it was the chairman of the commission that made the presentation to the city council. But in the last couple of years, it's been somebody on our commission rather than the traditional choice of the chairman.
Then I would suggest that we have the each commissioner who made each nomination make that presentation to council.
I would second that.
Okay, so let's say that, if I may,
Please.
suggest that the motion be modified to say, designate the commissioner who nominated each of the two respective recipients to prepare wording for the award presentation by the City Council.
Thank you. Do you want to make the motion, Commissioner Boggs?
I'll make a motion that we do that.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I do have a comment on the written article about Aaron Clapp.
Mm-hmm.
And because it mentions the Ojai Valley Women's Club, I would like to point out that woman's is always spelled with an A, like a singular woman. And every woman in Ojai is always a member of that club, whether you want to be or not. It's just automatic.
Thank you. So we need to vote on this. Commissioner Bisaccia?
Yes.
Commissioner Boggs?
Yes?
Commissioner Hill?
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Walker?
Yes?
Commissioner Boyer?
Yes.
It is so moved. Thank you.
You have to, who are the people?
Rick and,
Rick Bisaccia was the nominated Aaron Clapp, and
Terry
Brian.
and Craig jointly
Okay.
nominated Tia.
Terry did it.
Oh, I thought you guys, I thought
Commissioner,
the two of you.
I would like to opt out of that because I'm going to be making another presentation.
so Commissioner Walker, it falls to you.
Or you could wait next month and I'll do it.
Okay.
Okay.
That sounds good. I'll delegate.
Future Commissioner Akins. Thank you. Item number 3.
Okay. This is, oh, I'm sorry, did you need to
No,
read
go
it?
ahead.
I'm sorry. Subject, recognition of Patricia Clark Dorner And to thank Commissioner Dorner for her 10 years of service to the city of Ojai. The city has invited her to a city council meeting to receive a plaque that will be placed in council chambers. The date of this meeting has not been determined, but staff will provide the HPC with that date as soon as it is known. The city clerk has asked that the HPC develop a short tribute to be read by a commissioner at the city council meeting the night of the presentation. So before you tonight, we would like you to nominate a commissioner to develop a tribute and present it to city council.
I would nominate Terry Hill.
Yes, so this is the one I was referring to. I phoned Heather a couple of weeks ago and asked, in back of me, there is a plaque, the Ojai Commissioners 10-year service recognition, and on that plaque, Pat's name should be added. And the reason it isn't already up there is that they never give those little plaques on that big board up there until they have retired from the commission. And in Pat's case, it's a little bit more complicated because while this is a 10-year service, there needs to be, and I talked to Rhonda. I talked to Rhonda, and she is ordering a special Ojai tile that will include Pat's years of service on it, because Pat came onto the commission the same time I did in 1993, and she served for a while, and then she took leave of the commission, and she was writing her best-selling book on Ronald Reagan's right-hand man and her cousin. And so she needed time to do that. And she took off for a number of years. And then I kept encouraging, you got to get back on this commission. And so she did. So she had a split service. And it shouldn't just say on her plaque, 10 years of service. It should give the entirety of what she did over all those years. So, and I told Heather at that time, I would be glad to make the presentation for Pat, provided I knew what the date was. Now, the dates that Rhonda gave me were October 14th and October, 2 weeks later, the 14th and the 28th. And Pat has, she's really dealing with her husband's health, and she hasn't gotten back as of 2 days ago as to what date she wanted to have it presented by the council.
Well, I just point out that October 14th is possibly tentatively being canceled because I believe, isn't that the meeting date you're gone, I believe? I don't mean to put you on the spot, I'm sorry.
Oh, you can't put me on the spot. I will be absent the October 14th meeting, and so will the city manager. I think at the 23rd, the meeting of the 23rd, they're going to ask whether or not the council would like to cancel that meeting. It doesn't have to, because a majority will be present.
Yeah.
Oh.
I only offer that because that's still kind of up in the air.
Yes,
So we'll
right.
let you know.
Right.
And we can certainly, by after the 23rd, let you know. And we'll keep in touch with you.
After the 23rd of September.
September, that's
And
the
then-
next city council meeting, and they
Right.
will have to have made the decision of whether they cancel that meeting or not by that date.
I will not be here October 14th.
Well, that's the city council.
So it could
That's not
potentially be
commission.
October 14th
No,
or
I
October,
would like to be there for
Oh, okay.
Pat.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so if Commissioner Boggs would like to be there for the presentation of Patricia's, which I think is important, for her colleagues to be there, then I will make sure that Rhonda knows that you would prefer the second date then. Is that your wish?
Fine with me.
I think so.
It was at a time that I felt that I could do either one of those dates.
Okay, all right.
And just so you know, the second meeting in October for the council is October 28th.
Right.
Thank you for that clarification. It did seem a little bit too close.
Okay, thank you. So do we need to nominate Commissioner Hill for this duty?
We have a nomination
Okay,
already. I
all
think
right.
someone needs to second it.
My friend,
Is the city council, oh, you're on the wrong page.
I will second that.
There you go.
Thank you.
And then you can go ahead and call for the vote.
call for the vote.
Michelle
I know,
Russell,
I'm waiting
23rd for sure.
Commissioner Bisaccia.
We're voting on the nomination of Commissioner Hill to prepare the report on Pat Dorner's commemoration.
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Bisaccia, Commissioner Boggs?
Yes.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes.
Commissioner Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Roney?
It's okay.
I will get
Yes,
it right.
that's okay.
Thank you. It is so moved. Item 4?
Item 4 is the evaluation survey. And at the last meeting, also August 14th, staff presented an item regarding the HPC's annual goals for 2014 to review potential landmark nominations and prepare written reports evaluating the historic nature of these structures. At that time, it was requested that the evaluation take the form of a questionnaire, somewhat like the County of Ventura's in preparation for a landmark nomination. Since this last meeting, staff emailed 3 examples of questionnaires to each of the commissioners, and which have been used in the past in the city of Ojai. With the response of 3 commissioners to date, it looks like questionnaire number 1, which is attachment B, was the most preferred. In an effort to keep the evaluation similar in form and content, please use the attached questionnaire when evaluating one of the potential historic structures on the HPC's list of goal properties. So we just present that as an informational item, as that's the one that won out in the beauty contest.
Well, this is what I'm was referring to at the beginning of the meeting. I also, when the call went out and those 3 items came up before the group, and when they emailed us that, I said, well, why don't we use the form that already exists for the county? And that was, here's the survey of Ojai in 1985, Phase 3, and all those, the whole thing's already been done. Not only this one is Phase 3, which is just outside the city limits, but there was a city one done too. And there were binders for each commissioner that we could refer to those pages. And so I think that if you look in your files, the binders are about this thick each. And it has every one of these houses on it already. And it's fully described with maps and with photographs. Judy Treem was the one that organized this, and she and Betty McAllister and Rose Boggs and others on their bicycles surveyed the whole gizmo. And so it's already done.
Can you answer then, when we get, like for instance, with the firehouse that came before us just recently, did they use that form?
Oh, I'm sure that they used this form in their own, because they were, that was done by the Ventura Cultural Heritage Board. David probably could.
So the only way that wouldn't be pertinent anymore is if somebody's made substantial changes to what was seen during that time. Okay, so.
It's got all the thing about the roof lines and who designed it and
so you
the
want to
depth
use
and
that
the measurements and all that stuff. I would suggest that before we jump to starting to fill out and choose one of these 3 items, that we review what we already have. Okay. And because we've already done this.
That makes sense. Let's then where I'm hearing you say is let's bring what was done in those evaluation reports in whatever year that was, and then we'll be able to discuss those and what changes have been made from that date, and which one of these would have to be updated. But you're also saying, why switch to a new form? Use the same format that's in those books.
And this would be a form that would be consistent with what the county is using.
That is fine. Then this is informational, so it's totally at your discretion to direct staff, and if that's what you want to do, that's fine.
Also, maybe about 10 years ago, we had a chairman at that time, Holly Mitchum, and she thought we wanted to complete this survey, And so she organized a group that included Thatcher's students as interns. And we met at several of the important houses in Ojai. We met at the 1,000 Foothill Road, among others. And she was organizing her students from Thatcher how to go about doing this. And unfortunately, she resigned from the commission not long after that. But there was an attempt to redo it. Then we kept asking what we need is a survey of all the historic homes in Ojai, and that's when we convinced the city to develop a big survey that Treatment Associates did, and we had that, and it was all codified, and it was all, each house was ranked by its historical importance, by the trueness of its residual architectural features. All those things were made up, and you would get a reading if a house was I don't know, what were they?
1, 2, or 3, or
Yeah, it was a 1, 2, or 3, and then it had two numbers, and if it had both of those numbers, boy, that was one we wanted to do. And so that was done also. And the final part of that never was completed was a complete historic survey, just like this, for each one of these each one of the homes in Ojai over 50 or 75 years of age. But that now we've reduced that. The people in Ojai, there was a planning commission meeting, and it got the press kind of got the wrong idea in their issue of the Ojai Valley News, and it was a call to arms. Come and fight this bureaucratic the situation. And everybody thought that their house was going to be the one that was going to
Be landmark.
was going to be landmark. You know, we're going to have over 400 landmarks in this city, and it's taken us this long in all the years that we've had the commission to do 20. And so the city council at that time said, what we need is something a little bit more select and a little bit more restricted and refined, and that's why we came up with the sites of historic merit.
We're happy if you guys want to give, as a collective whole, give staff direction to use those documents in the same survey that was done in those documents, which is now the County of Ventura's survey. That's fine. It's right. Is that
No, that's not quite right.
Okay.
There were two surveys done. This one was done for the Cultural Heritage and Arts Commission for the county. And this is Phase 3, Ojai 1985, and this consists of the Ojai Valley, the parts that are outside of the city limits. Because our city council at that time voted no on having it done within the city limits. And that's when the group of Rose and Betty McAllister and they got together and formed one using the exact same format as this. Mm-hmm. So the formats were the same. The agency that sponsored them were different.
Even though the city council, it would have been at no cost, because I forget exactly how it was, but the money was there to pay for the city survey, but the council refused.
Well, I mean, as we saw tonight, that's why we had the outreach today is, people are uncomfortable if they don't understand what it means for their property. And we can all understand that especially staff's position is to make people educated as to what it means to be landmarked and Mills Act. We all see that. It's just our job to do. So whatever your preference is, we're more than happy to move this forward with whatever worksheet that you would like us to use.
Thank you. So we're not going to change anything, is what I'm
Well,
hearing.
what I would suggest is that staff looks into what they have
Okay,
and to see how comprehensive what has already been done.
We
How
most
compre-
certainly can do that, and we will bring it back before you.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll have time to do it before the next meeting, but let's give us 2 meetings out, and we will
Yeah.
do that and
it's a
bring it
pretty
back.
big report.
Yeah, we'll try to get as much together. And it's a good thing, because when these people come in, that will be already compiled for them.
That's right.
That's an excellent thing to do. Okay.
Thank you. Item number 5, informational item.
Yes, this kind of came in at the last minute. This is ordinary repair and maintenance of the Ojai Valley Museum roofs in Ojai City Hall building. And as you know, ordinary repair and maintenance does not need a work permit, but in our quest to do more informational reports to the commission, we just brought this before you. Greg Grant was very diligent in trying to get this before you so that you knew what was going on with these 2 buildings. So the city of Ojai is proposing to re-roof 2 structures, the museum and the city hall. Both projects are considered to be ordinary repair and maintenance, and therefore not subject to a work permit. However, as I said, keeping with the city's commitment to keep the historic preservation informed as to the projects affecting landmarks, or in the case of City Hall, a property listed on the sites of merit, we're providing the following information. The roofs are in need of repair, the historic main chapel with a slope tile roof, and behind or north of that, the newer artifacts building with a flat, and please don't ask me to say that word, composite roof.
Mm-hmm.
The City Hall is a smaller tile roof repair over the front lobby and in the middle of the building. Estimated cost of repairs is $65,000. This work includes removing of the existing roof systems and replacement with a new roof system. The existing tile will be carefully removed, preserved, and stored, and the old roofing underlayment, tar paper removed, the new roofing underlayment placed, and then the old tile will be replaced then. Any broken tiles will be replaced with the same style and material tile, which the Public Works has a surplus of currently, and they store this at the yard. The Artifacts building roof to the rear is flat with a parapet wall surrounding it. Most of the roof is concealed behind the parapet wall. Similarly, all tile work at the City Hall will be replaced with the same tile removed, with any broken tile replaced with the same from the Public Works storage. So it's just clearly showing the intent to preserve the original roof tiles, but to maintain a building. That's just information for you. If you have any questions, I can answer any questions.
Are there any questions or comments from the commissioners on this? I think it's pretty straightforward. I just don't want to see any new tiles that are really visible from the street.
Yeah.
Put the new tiles in the back.
I will relay that on to Mr. Grant.
Does he have any comments?
Do you have any comments, Mr. Brandt?
Yeah, it's right there.
Where did you come from?
He snuck in.
I wouldn't have given you a report for you if I would have seen you.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. Nicely done. No, I think that's pretty well said, and I agree. I think the new tiles.
I'm sorry, could you announce who you are?
I'm sorry, yeah, Greg Grant, Public Works Director. And
Thank you.
I think I appreciate Kathleen covering that. And yeah, I think that we do have quite a bit of the tiles down below, and I know one of the problems when they remove these really old tiles that they can continue to break a little bit too.
Yeah.
So we'll do our best, I agree, to make sure, I think we can put them in the back over towards the mob shop.
Okay.
Or the less visible side. We'll see which one it is.
Thank you.
Or maybe even exchange it from the City Hall.
Thank you.
And if we do need to buy new ones, we'll make sure they're the old style.
Okay.
So I have a question. Are you going to stay here for the rest of the meeting, or can I make a comment to you now?
I was planning to leave if that's all right, but.
Well, I was on the trail today. I stopped using it because I didn't feel safe, but today I walked from Bryant Street to the tennis courts. And I just wanted to compliment you and thank the city for the beautiful signs that you've put up there now that say recreation and the park and the ride and, what do you call it, skate park and the ride place. And they're beautiful and they're just wonderful. How long have they been there?
I would guess 3 months right now, I'd say, yeah. Those are all part of the funding that we get to use recycled goods. So
Yeah.
those are all plastic recycled signs.
I'd like to see that in the paper and show people what a good job you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, yep. We're trying to keep doing more of that. And we're using that old style sign based on what's downtown, but they are recycled plastic, so we can use the special fund that we have.
Very nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Future agenda items?
Wait a minute,
Oh,
number
I'm sorry.
6.
Number 6, I'm sorry. There's nothing in this, so it's a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
But number 6 is the commissioner's report, if you guys are prepared, the USC training for a verbal report from those commissioners that attended.
Well, I guess I can start, being the new commissioner here.
Commissioner Roney?
Commissioner Roney.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a privilege to attend the training at USC for several reasons. One being how informative it was, and how professional everybody was at the university. Very thorough. It was a 2-day training, and some of the basic things we learned that would answer many of our questions here was review of Mills Act, procedures with the Brown Act, process with CEQA if needed, what is entailed in an environmental review for an applicant. We had several guest speakers, and I think Craig, you'll probably speak to that a bit more. But very practical, real-life examples. I think the one thing that was really good about the training was they provided probably 10 to 15 different real-life examples of individuals or cases or properties that were in the process or had been in the process of preservation. And so as case studies, it was good, very good and practical to see. Rick, I didn't know if you had anything that you wanted to add.
Are you finished describing the experience?
I
I thought we were going to go down the line. And, I'm on? Okay.
Commissioner Pisaccia?
Well, we probably all have different impressions of it, but I did very much enjoy going down there also with these two guys. We had a lot to talk about, and it was fun. But besides that, I got some stuff from it that I wasn't really aware of, having to do, and maybe you'll speak more to this too, or round it out, but one of the guest speakers at the USC School of Architecture was, he was a representative from, I think it was the LA, Historic Preservation Conservancy or something? Yeah, so that was very interesting to me, and they showed a lot of photographs of projects they had done and buildings that had been lost, which seemed like a real travesty. And he kind of impressed upon us the idea of historic zones or neighborhoods, and not necessarily buildings that were even historically significant in the way that we identify buildings. Sometimes they just had to do with a feel or preserving maybe even just a couple houses in an area that lent to the feelings of the past from whichever town they were in Los Angeles. I think it was in the county, right? Of which there are many jurisdictions. But one of the things they talked about was how important it is for people living in a place that they have this link with their past, and it's almost like a spiritual sensibility where people need that. It's almost like a necessity for them to have this tie-in, and some of the jurisdictions there got a very low grade in this area, and they almost do nothing, whereas some towns like Pasadena and Glendale do a sterling job. Another thing I got from this was I particularly like older homes, and I do appreciate the modern homes, modern, being like from the 1930s and so on. But there were actually some projects where they were trying to save, in one case, an old supermarket, because that was an example of this particular style, which when I was a kid, I thought it was horribly ugly. But I could appreciate, what they were trying to do, and that was something that I was kind of unaware of before as a sensibility. I think that's about all I have to say about it.
Commissioner Walker?
I too really enjoyed the experience. It was just remarkable to be down there and to hear from these people who weren't just professors, but they were people really working in the field, one of whom was Ken Bernstein, who we went and met before, who is the head of the Los Angeles Historic Preservation Office. And he spoke for quite a while and answered a lot of questions. And he was the one that talked about a lot of the different areas, historic zones. I think they have 53 historic zones in the city of Los Angeles. And Los Angeles, people think of it as kind of the new modern up-and-coming city, but it really leads the nation in some ways in terms of its efforts, historic preservation efforts. So it was great to hear from him and to hear from Jay Platt from the city of Glendale, who they have a little different take on historic preservation, but he had so many great insights and advice for us as commissioners. And Adrian Fine, who's the head of the Los Angeles Conservancy. This is a nonprofit organization that advocates on behalf of historic preservation. And it made us kind of think that really what we're lacking here in Ojai is a historic conservancy, to have a group of citizens who are separate from the commission, who bring projects before us, who advocate for historic preservation, that let us know when there are buildings that need to be preserved. And some examples he gave, like Rick said, were these more modern Googie style coffee shops and stuff that at the time they just seemed kind of strange, but now that we're 40 or 50 years out, we can really see that they represented an era. And I thought about our own Ojai Frosty and how that was something that represented an era, and then it was gone. And so it's kind of hard sometimes to look at these buildings that are only 40 or 50 years old and say they deserve recognition, but they do, because you have to think in terms that they are the historic buildings of the future, and we don't want to see them removed like happened with the pergola, where people said, oh, they're just old, they don't serve any purpose anymore, and maybe they need to go, that they will be missed. One of the things they talked about they have in Los Angeles is an adaptive reuse ordinance that I thought maybe we should look at something like that, where these old buildings that are really wonderful old buildings, they have a special ordinance where if someone comes in and agrees to make a new use out of those old buildings, they expedite the approval process and they make it really easy for the developers to do that. So there's a lot of wonderful old buildings that now have new uses, and even housing. They have these adaptive reuses that have just made these buildings become resources for the city. Another thing I learned was how important CEQA is, and we do get reviews here before this commission that have to do with CEQA reviews, and I'm not sure that I personally really understand our role in that as well as I would like to. So it might be something for a future workshop to have maybe the city attorney or the staff to come and really talk to us about what CEQA is and what role that we can play to better use the CEQA process to preserve these historic structures. They talked about the California State Certified Local Government, that you can become a certified local government, and that qualifies you for a lot of grants for historic preservation. However, they went through a list of about 20 things that you need to have to be considered by the state as a certified local government. And we have almost all of them, but there were a couple that we don't. We don't have a local conservancy, which is a citizens group. And there's that one issue of, does the landowner have veto power over preservation? And that's something that the state insists that you do have, that the landowner not have veto power over the the landmarking. Now, the city of Glendale, they do allow, like we do, the landowner to have veto power over that process, but the city of Los Angeles doesn't. Anyone can nominate property as historic structure, and it goes through the process, and the city council can nominate it and can award landmark status even though the landowner may not particularly want it. They talked about the Mills Act, and one of the things that I was unclear about was, does the Mills Act give extra protection? And Ken Bernstein said, really, it's your landmarking that gives the protection to the structure. The Mills Act just provides a benefit to the landowner, that they have to follow what's in the landmark packet, and if they do, and if they get the agreement of the city council, they can get some break on their property taxes. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But what I was left with is just that historic preservation is a public benefit. It's not for the benefit of the landowners, it's for the benefit of us who live here in the public, and that we should be cognizant of that. And we do have the city, just as it can decide what sorts of things are followed when a building is constructed, like what kind of zone, what kind of density, what kind of height limits, and all those things. A city should also, when a building is being deconstructed, is being changed, has also that same responsibility to look at it and decide whether it's being done in a way that honors its historic value for the community. So it was just excellent, and I hope that we are provided that opportunity to go back, because it's 3 weeks long. We only went for 2 days, and they have a lot of other workshops and things available for people. So it would be very nice to go and maybe partake in another part of it. So that's all I have to say.
Wasn't that actually part of a master's program?
Yeah, there was some kind of certification that you could get as a
Yeah.
planner. If you were a planner and you wanted to get certification, you could go take that whole 2 weeks or 3 weeks and get a special certification as a planner.
Oh.
Yeah, there was a certification program, and then there was a master's degree.
There's a master's program.
Right.
And also, I'm not sure you made it particularly clear, but this was through the USC School of Architecture, but the one day we were at the city of Glendale, so a lot of it was about Glendale. And then the second day we were actually at the school. So.
Did Ken Bernstein mention that the city of Los Angeles has an entire historic preservation department, big office and employees, and most of it's funded by the Getty Museum?
And if I'm not mistaken, the chair, was the chair of the county commission there as well, the gentleman who spoke?
Yeah, they had the man who was the chair of the city of Los Angeles commission.
Right.
He talked about the relationship that the commission had with the city planners,
Right.
and talked about a lot of really strange little cases that we would probably never run into here, like this old beat-up house in East Los Angeles, which was where the Los Angeles chapter of the NAACP was founded. And all of the things they went through there, and then their program, which can be done over the objections of the landowner, how they handle that in a way that makes it work for everyone. So I thought it was just fantastic, and to hear the chair of the commission speak too was really good.
And we really appreciate the city of Ojai sponsoring that. It was just first class all the way. So.
Excellent. I was just going to offer that if there's any materials that you got that you think would be of use to staff or other commissioners, if you want to turn them into staff and have staff make copies or do something.
Well, this was our textbook. You're welcome to read it.
Oh, that would be nice. I mean, I think it's the nice part about, is when some people go, if they share the information with all, it always helps. So if you got handouts or anything you think are important for staff to read, we'd really appreciate it.
And just as Mrs. Thornhill was here asking questions about what it means to be on the list of sites of merit, those were the exact items that were covered in the training. And so that's the practicality in the training. It was just really thorough and well done, even for 2 days.
So you think it'd be worthy of staff to go next year then too? I think sounds like it. Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask a question about, I know it was difficult for me when we went to the City of Los Angeles and to their Historic Preservation Commission. How accessible were the venues? I mean, how easy was it to walk from where you parked to the location?
Pretty easy. The one in Glendale, we parked right next to it in the city parking lot, and they had elevators and everything that went right to the room, so that was easy. And then at USC, we had to walk a little distance, but it wasn't too bad.
There's a parking garage.
Yeah.
So it was all something I think that would be accessible.
There was food nearby and all.
Food.
We got to be college students for a day.
Thank you.
If you're at USC, having close food's good.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
Ms. Wold, future agenda items?
Yes. For October 9th, I think, let's see, final discussion on Ojai Day. I think we're bringing back, I think this is missing an item or two. We're bringing back the library, the Friends of the Library, as he said this evening, for him to do a presentation on their concept plan.
Okay.
What they intend to do for you. And then I guess continue discussion about your budget. And I guess probably, I mean, it's kind of early, but I guess we need to really decide what I guess there's a couple items in my brain's kind of going fast here, but there's an issue regarding whether or not we still want to retain and I spoke to you this afternoon about that, the OhaiPreservation.org domain name. And we can bring that forward on, I think it's due September 19th. So I guess I've been, can't wait till October 9th, but I think maybe I'll just tell him to pay for it for this year, and then we can discuss it in more detail about whether it needs to be an ongoing, what the commission's doing with it.
Kathleen, under the budget discussion, are we going to get a chance to weigh in on the proposed new fee?
Oh, well, I'm sorry. That's what it is. Yes, thank you for triggering. I wasn't getting the recall there, but yes. That is one of the things that the fees having to do with, that were presented to council regarding master fee schedule changes, in particular anything having to do with HPC will not become effective until you have a chance to weigh in on it. And even though it's going forward at the next city council meeting, my understanding is that those changes won't happen for those particular fees until the respective board or commission takes a look at them, so that you can weigh in on whether you want changes to, there were, for instance, everybody understands that Taramia is going to probably revisit the issue of becoming a district again.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we had specific fees for that. I mean, there are things that are just done so seldom here, don't really have a routine fee to them. So there were things that staff was asked to develop. But then, there's an issue about HPC not really weighing in on whether there's a social benefit to keeping the fees low, that type of thing.
I'm sure we would have input on that.
Yes. So that is and thank you for that, Chickler. Yes.
I heard rumblings about this, the new fee changes, and I think, and I made the comment to Commissioner Walker, if you had talked about what some of the proposals were for the fees, for a landmarking fee and for a Mills Act fee, you would have emptied this room tonight of the people that came here for the discussion. The fees were so high.
So let me just give a little primer on that, just so that you know. So staff was asked, at least I was, as community development director, I was asked to provide what it takes to do the work, the fee. I wasn't asked to provide whether it was necessarily, whether I agreed with that fee. I was just asked, what is the average, what is the time that staff spends on doing a landmark or a Mills Act? There's a lot of details to it because you have, a whole historic background, as well as all the, if they're doing, well, it just depends. But if they're just doing landmarking or Mills Act, there's a lot to it. So there's a lot of time involved in it, a lot of studies that have to be compiled, or read, and then brought forth, and it goes all the way up to city council. So there's a lot of staff time. And that's where those fees came from. They were just total
Okay.
cost recovery.
Okay.
It wasn't, staff didn't make a recommendation as to whether or not there was a social benefit to it or not. That was something left for the city manager and the city council to use their discretion at. And so that's why I believe, and the mayor can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's why the city council is saying they want all the boards and commissions to weigh in, because now we're at the
Okay.
point in time where now you can do your advocacy as far as what the social benefit to, and what if it were adopted, what the detriment to having it is. So I think that's why it's coming back. It's not like it was trying to go all the way through without you having input. We're just at that stage now.
Okay.
As I even, I went back and looked at the historic preservation ordinance, and it says in the ordinance that, for example, the cost of the plaque will be borne by the city, and yet then there, all of a sudden, this plaque fee appeared, which seems like there's a...
Step back.
And I think it's important that it come before you, we have a discussion, and you direct
Okay,
staff.
so we'll
That's-
wait until then.
Yes,
All right.
that's
Okay.
great.
Thank you. That will be a good one.
Is there anything, I guess that's it, unless there's something that
I was wondering about the 1001 Foothill. You said that they would probably bring that before the commission, the people who built the wall. You said that you would
1,000.
have them bring that back before the commission. When do you anticipate that they would do that?
So, is that the wall that's on Palomar and Foothill?
Right.
So, what I recall the conversation being is that I was receiving direction from the Historic Preservation Commission, from the commission to for you to file a complaint and that to be considered a code enforcement violation, and that we wouldn't be bringing it before you because that's a public hearing. I mean, we're on TV, and code enforcement is confidential. Most parts of it are. It's how it's held. It's someone makes a statement of violations. Staff is got the burden of proof that there's a violation, and so that all is handled confidentially. So that's where we're moving forward with that, in planning commission and available in our planning commission packet. And I can start putting it in here if you like. There's there's some details provided on our code enforcement list, as much as we can legally provide. Active, we try to give you an idea of what is we are actively working on.
Okay.
So fences are an issue. We have a number of them we're working on right now, in the city of Ojai. But with Mr. Shamshiri, he's still pursuing his, and he will come back before you because, as you all know, that's definitely a landmark, and him adding something on is definitely a work permit.
Thank you.
So he will come back.
Thank you. Are there any other commissioner comments or questions tonight? Commissioner Hill?
Yes, I'd like to report, essentially just try to keep it to the bare essentials as to what went on at the Planning Commission on their concept review. As I mentioned earlier, we had quite a contingent at the meeting, and one of the things that happened is that because the item we were concerned with was the last item on the agenda, we waited. We were in a group over here, and the whole room emptied out except for that group over in the corner. And
It's after 9 o'clock.
yes, and statements were made, and commentary was going on by the Planning Commission. And they would look over at us and they would see us nodding or doing this. And finally, after David's wonderful start for the thing and his statement about his position on what should happen, finally they said, they started asking us a few questions. They said, well, Mr. Hill, why don't you come up to the podium and answer some questions? And which I did. And I kind of give them a little bit of a historical aspect of our meetings that had occurred and what happened at our meetings. And we talked about the issues. And also, one of the things that I noticed that towards the end, when the Planning Commission was summarizing, they were saying things like, well, we would not proceed. We would not proceed about a thumbs up or thumbs down on this without this going to the HBC and getting their take, and we would be supportive of the historic planning, our commission. And so that was a good thing, I thought. And but it was very interesting because there were a lot of people here for some other issues, other architectural issues that they had to examine, and that took up a lot of time. And eventually it boiled down to us, and we brought
Well,
it
some
through.
of the planning commission too, they didn't quite understand why we are responsible for the safety of their children, and therefore they have to put up walls. And that's their only real reason for putting up walls, apparently, is that they want their children to be safe. Well, those children at age 2 and 4 should be supervised, but they're going to grow up.
Well, I do want to stay on track here.
Yeah.
I mean, this will come before us, and we'll have ample opportunity to
And
address that.
I'll just add a little bit more to that. I thought the commissioners did a wonderful job that night, and that what we're trying to do is help him, set down a course of how he can get before and get heard, because he's been confused between the two agencies. And I think I think they all did a wonderful job explaining to him. And in fact, there was an option given to him, which was a very viable option. So I think that it was very productive as far as a concept review.
I would say that he still is very frustrated over the issue of not being able to build a wall in front of his house. And he was throwing his hands open and saying, well, what can I do next? What's my alternative to the Historic Preservation Commission voting the issue down, the Planning Commission voting this down? What's my next option? And it was explained that he does have the option of bringing it directly to the city council and asking for their approval. But I felt that during all of that, he was thinking in terms of a future tact in the way of going about getting what he wanted, whether it be litigation or what.
Like I said, I think that a process was charted for him that he can
It
take.
was.
Yes.
And there were options given for him to have secured area for children to play in.
Yes.
That there was options given to him. So I think we did, like I said, I think it was very straightforward.
Thank you.
One last comment. I will not be here for Ojai Day, so if anyone had any questions about anything tonight, I'll answer them. And also be sure you have a direct phone call to locate the person in the park that didn't set the tables up,
Okay.
because we're way down below and they forget or they just don't remember or whatever.
Museum Liaison Akins. You have
Yes.
the floor.
Thank you. A couple things, in tying in the USC School of Architecture, the Ojai Planning Commission. If you go up Signal Street, 607 Signal, and look at that building that's there, that is the Flux House. which came from Fred Fisher, who owns the property, who's associated with the USC School of Architecture. In case you're wondering what those two components are. I guess there wasn't space, and he decided to bring it up to his property, and that caused a 1 hour and 45 minute
You can see
discussion.
the building where the thing has been all taken apart, and it's visible from
Signal.
From Signal, so you can see it all sitting there on the ground.
Yes. So the other thing is, thanks to Terry's wife, she mentioned that historic landmark number 13 had been sold. We arranged to talk with Cindy Convery, who Terry told me was standing in the door. I didn't see her tonight, and so
She was.
she allowed myself and Roger, the photographer and art person from the museum, to go up, and she took us on a tour of O.W. Robertson's house, and then basically turned the house over to us, and so we took pictures and took video of everything in there. Because it has been sold, Cindy is no longer there. She had to be out on the 8th, and the new owners coming up are a Hollywood couple,
Yes, big Hollywood
a
couple.
big Hollywood couple. However,
good.
Cindy has been doing her best to help them understand that they have moved to Ojai, that Ojai is a unique area, and that the Oscar, or O.W. Orrin W. Robertson House, historic landmark number 13, is a historic landmark, is covered by the Mills Act, and that any changes to it will have to go, should and have to go to the Historic Preservation Commission. And so she has been working closely with the well-known person and her husband to acclimate them to the Ojai Valley. So perhaps we don't have some issues that we have with other folks that have moved up here for the weekend.
She even confided in them about the neighbors and about her next door neighbors, and that's me.
Yeah. Those rowdies right behind me.
And when I'm on this commission.
Thank you.
So anyway, but I think Andrew Stassi is the person that has been hired to come in and do work for them. And so, part of the concern that Cindy shared with me and, asked me to relate was that, again, this is a historical property. And she said Andrew Stassi is really good about pulling permits, but that we should be aware that that property has a new owner and they're going to be making changes.
Thank you.
Those changes remain to be seen.
Thank you.
The other thing is she has moved down to the Chase House, which is just the other side of Terry's driveway, which I believe is, David, in 1928 building.
28 or 27.
And I don't believe on our historic sites of merit.
No.
And Cindy Convery is a National Historic Trust member and,
Oh my gosh.
is doing a lot of work. And if you go by there, you can see they're doing a roof and doing a lot of work inside.
She's
So
the new owner of that house?
She is. She has moved from 718 down to the Chase House.
One of the things that should be noted is that that's the original owner of that was the Estelle Clark of silent movie fame. And she was at the peak of her career when that became her residence. And she had the house built, and David has a lot of information about that, too.
And lastly, I just want.
And the other thing is, Cindy wants to make that a landmark. And
Yes.
she has said, if we make this a landmark, she said, I'd like to open this up for something like an open house for a fundraiser for the museum, or be part of the Feast on History type of situation. She wants to get involved in it.
Wonderful.
So it'll be a,
That would be terrific.
yeah.
And I noticed some of the work that she's doing is making good changes that, to some of the mistakes. So
And then
I saw them as mistakes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she is definitely making changes. And the last thing was to thank Mayor Strobel for moving me along in the process to change seats next meeting. So,
So Mayor Strobel, would you like to,
thank you.
Mayor Strobel, would you like to address the commission at this time?
Yes, I'm in the mood to incite riot too.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Your council liaison for this quarter is Mayor Pro Tem Smith. She's out of the state, so I'm here on her behalf.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to let you know that. Earlier tonight, you were talking about a report that was referenced on an item that was before the Planning Commission, and here's where that inciting riot comes in. Before the council, when an issue comes before the council, if material is given to me after the packet has been distributed, like given to me at the meeting, I set it aside. I do not consider it because the public has not had an opportunity to view the material that I would be using to make a decision. So a big mistake is bringing material to a council meeting to be used in consideration of decision making. I'm real firm on that. I will continue an item if information has been brought forth so that everything can be made available to the public. So mainly because of the chaos that was created, because some had the benefit of a report, historic report, while others did not, it's for that very reason that if something is handed to me at council, I do not use it to make a decision. I'll
Thank you.
continue it. So you can see what chaos came out of. That's my inciting riot part. I just wanted to mention that the tenure plaques, the concept for that, and the proponent for it was former councilwoman and mayor Nina Shelley. So that was one of her, she thought it was very important to recognize our volunteers. So that's Nina Shelley's design and et cetera. So I just wanted to mention that. Fee schedule. When we got to the master fee schedule, when council began to deliberate the section pertaining to HPC, some of us had different memories depending on when we were liaison to the Historic Preservation Commission and what was being discussed when we were liaison. My memory was that you wanted it easier for an owner to obtain historic designation
Landmarking.
and more difficult for the Mills Act. Now, I'm not saying this is correct. That's why it's coming back to you. Other council members had different ideas. So that's why we said, wait, we need to send this back to HPC and find out what their preference is, because I do see it as a public benefit. How strong do we want our encouragement of preserving historic houses to be? So that's why it's coming back to you. And even if the council, the council may adopt the majority of the master fee schedule simply because it needs to be updated. But we're very aware that we need to look again through your eyes on the fees that pertain to historic preservation.
Yes, it's not unusual for municipalities to have artificially low fees for landmarking as a carrot. And so we would, on this commission, have a lot to say about that.
But other council members thought you wanted a higher fee. I thought you wanted a lower fee, so that's why we went timeout.
Okay, all right.
Let's just do this again because we're not.
Okay.
We don't have the same perceptions here. And we did not re-interview. When I say we, I mean the subcommittee, myself and I've forgotten who would have been on that committee. Well, it would have been you, right? Karen? And we did not re-interview because we had already interviewed Brian. And so we thought that was a excellent fit. Now, I don't know what the museum's going to do Maybe they'll bring David back.
I think that would
Just
be great.
interim, David, just interim.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, we've been working on that, but.
So that's all of my comments.
Thank
Do you
you.
have any questions of me?
No, I think you hit the hot buttons, so
Okay,
thank you so much.
I wanted to ask
Oh, go
you,
ahead.
there was a couple of things that were brought to my attention. One was a structure on Signal Street that is under review on the west side. But
A fence or wall or a
The
hedge?
wall.
yeah, that there's a big structure that hasn't been brought before us or mentioned, and I'm wondering if it might not be interesting for us to get a summary of it.
And I'm not sure which, I mean, I know there's a complaint, neighborhood complaint going around regarding a fence on North Signal, and this is another sideline. We met, I met earlier in the week, it was only a couple of the applicants, but regarding neighborhood planning, and North Signal was one of the things that I mentioned that I felt was very important. Even maybe more so than the entire neighborhood it's in, because it gets a lot of controversy. So we need to establish the character of that street, what the owners want that North Signal to be, and what would be best, and what the city wants it to be. Because it dead ends into a trailhead. We have historic structures, and so North Signal is one of the places I want us to look at. But I don't know about anything about a.
Historic
Are you
overlay zone.
talking about the?
Historic.
I was talking about, well, I know what you're talking about, the wall up by the Pratt Trail, but I also heard about a structure that's being built between Matilaha and Aliso Street on the west side that's being proposed. Have you heard about that? No.
I don't. I
Okay,
don't
maybe
think so.
just,
But I will add on to what Mayor Strobel said about the neighborhood planning. I'm hoping that the commissioners will really participate when we get into the workshops and things of that nature, because I think having input, once we get this kind of rolling, is going to be so important for your perspective on it. From what you were just saying about what you learned about the USC, I think that will just network right into what we're looking for.
And I would like to see city staff that works with HPC to attend the next seminar and or whatever they call it. I think that would be really good to have staff and HPC members on the same page working. And I also think the neighborhood planning, even though that's a future goal, my experience is the future gets here before you even know it. I mean, I can't even believe I worked for 20 years for the city. I'm retired, it's like, boom, it's there. And if we don't go ahead and begin with neighborhood planning, finding out what a neighborhood wants for itself and what the city wants for the neighborhood, we'll continue to have unaddressed issues that I think it's better to address now. So I'm glad we're starting the neighborhood planning. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Well, I was just going to say the same thing with the Arbolata, because a lot of what we've been faced with the walls and the Arbolata might be addressed by looking at the Arbolata as a neighborhood, and how do we want that to look? Do we want it to be the original concept of setbacks and open spaces, or do we want to see these walls go up one by one and close it off?
And speaking of the Arbolata, I would like to know the impact that MPDES, do I have the initials correct there? The impact of MPDES and the Regional Sanitary District, when will sewer connections be required, and how will that impact the historic structures? Because I think that's coming up too. Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. David, anything for us tonight? Glad to have you here, as always. With that, I think we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Okay.